October 25, 3 months na since President Marcos said this in his SONA. But magti 3 months na, wala pa tayong listahan kung ano yung ghost. Di ba na
Hindi nga ho yun, hindi nga yung ghost ang hinahanap ng ating mga kababayan. Given na yun, napakarami ng ghost. Ang hinahanap po ngayon ng ating mga kababayan, 3 months na. Bakit wala pa rin napapakulong itong administrasyon na to? Gayong nagsusumigaw na ang mga ebidensya. Interview naman ho nito.
Magandang araw po sa inyo mga banateras. Ako po si Banat Girl. Ito po mga banateras, panoorin natin ito at sabay-sabay po tayong mag-react sa comment section. Alright, panoorin na po natin ito mga banateras. Mag-comment po kayo sa comment section at huwag po ninyong kalimutan mag-subscribe, i-like at i-share ang ating video. I am not Filipino for nothing. Mahalin po natin ang Pilipinas. Ito na po.
ask the toughest question?
No, I don't. Come on. I'm very nice. So, it's been a while. Bakit hindi ka masyado nagpapa-interview?
Soul searching kasi 2022, syempre kadibati ko yung naging Pangulo 6 years before that. Then, malapit ako kay President Duterte pero hindi naman ako ganun kalapit kay Vice President Sara. So when I won in 2022, searching din ako anong role ko dito, bakit nasa Senate pa rin, baka time to listen more than to speak. Not knowing that I'll find myself as minority leader 3 years later and yet another national scandal but in a scale we've never seen before.
You're so right. Oo. Matagal na rin tayo dito. Ngayon talaga lang natin nakikita yung ganito kalaki yung bulusok
Yes.
ng pagsabog ng bulkan.
Well, siguro kasi, di ba, Korina, yung, let's say, whether you say BIR or customs or even DPWH, it's massive, pero kanya-kanya and different. Pero yung modus na parang may mastermind and then so many people involved. Tapos ghost pa.
Oo.
Parang nowadays, na may cellphone, may internet, may local media, parang paano nangyari to, di ba?
Right, right. And it's been happening for so long.
For so long, yeah.
Under the noses of the best journalists. Hindi ba?
Well, the best politicians.
Yes.
I would dare say the best COA in history given the budget, the money, and
Right.
yung ni-reveal nila the last 10 years. But
Right.
it
And also,
apparently so it's like a COVID-19. It infected too many people.
too many, and we didn't know where it was coming from. Kasi there was a time to be a contractor was a badge of honor. And all contractors are wealthy. I mean, most of them are. So who is to presume
Especially when you
irregularity?
say AAA, di ba?
Oo.
So pag sinabi mong AAA and then usually pag AAA meron silang private, may government, parang bang hindi mo i-risk yung license mo or yung pagkilala para pumasok sa ganito. And then,
Correct.
nagising na lang tayo isang araw na it's so massive and high government officials. And can you imagine on October 25, 3 months na since President Marcos said this in his SONA, but magti 3 months na, wala pa tayong listahan kung ano yung ghost. Di ba na
Hindi nga ho yun, hindi nga yung ghost ang hinahanap ng ating mga kababayan. Given na yun, napakarami ng ghost. Ang hinahanap po ngayon ng ating mga kababayan, 3 months na. Bakit wala pa rin napapakulong itong administrasyon na to? Gayong nagsusumigaw na ang mga ebidensya na yung mga naningit ng budget, yung mga district engineer na nagsalita dyan sa House of Representatives, yung mga naghatid ng pera, iisa ang tinuturo nila. Walang iba kung hindi yung kaibigan nitong si Martin Romualdez, yung utusan ni Martin Romualdez na itong si Elizaldico na ngayon nasa Espanya. Di umano. Hindi nga natin malaman kung saan yung kung nasaan ngayon tong si Elizaldico Pero isa lang ho sigurado natin dito, nagtatago ngayon si Elizaldico, siya ho ang isa sa pinakamaraming insertion sa 23, 24, 25 budget. Hindi lang ho kasi kasi binanggit natin itong mga kakurakutan sa budget na to, hindi lang ho tayo pwedeng magsabi na dito sa 2025 napakarami. 23, 24, 25. Yung 25, pilit ho nilang pinagtatakpan yung tatlong budget na ginawa ng administrasyon na to. Na kung saan yung 24 walang humpay na pag-aayuda. Ganon din ho sa 2025 talagang nagpalabas ho sila ng napakaraming ayuda dyan dahil panahon ng kampanya. Bakit wala pang nakukulong? Yan ang tanong ng sambayan ng Pilipino. Ghost Project, ano yun ang given eh? Di ba? Doon nga lang sa mga di umanong insertion ni Risa, meron din daw di umanong ghost project. Diba? Yung mga nasa Bulacan, maliwanag pa ho sa sikat ng araw. At sinabi rin ng mga Bulacan First District Engineering Office, talagang marami talagang ghost project at mga substandard yung kanilang mga itinatayo. Doon pa lang ho mga kababayan, talagang meron na ho tayong problema dyan. Kailangan meron na ho talagang makulong.
Kung gaano ka-massive yung mga problema. Kasi 3 trillion pesos in 3 years. Tapos pag dinamay mo pa yung before 2022, before 2016, ang haba pa nun. But yun na lang 2025 at 2024. Bakit wala pa tayong listahan ng ghost, di ba?
Okay, bakit nga ba?
I don't know.
Because that's also one of my questions. Do you think may mangyayari dito which goes to, bakit ang tagal?
Di ba, in any problem, you start by acknowledging that there's a problem. Di ba? Kung addiction yan, if you don't say you're an addict, then there's no change. O, as soon as you acknowledge that, the next step is, saan tayo magsa-start? So sa akin kasi, with the amount of money we're talking about, which is definitely tens, maybe hundreds of billions, hindi naman siguro trillion, kasi hindi naman yung trillion yung ghost, di ba? And even if you say 300 to 350 billion flood control a year for 3 years, hindi naman lahat yon ghost. So we're talking about hundreds of billions of pesos. So kung ikaw ang mastermind nun, at hindi lang naman siguro isa mastermind, and then maraming nasa first layer, guguluhin mo talaga. Guguluhin mo talaga. So from the smallest corruption to the biggest, gusto mong rambulin yon para nga hindi mapunta sa'yo. And then magturuan na. And of course, there are temptations, di ba? I mean, you'd rather catch a congressman than a district engineer. And you'd rather catch a senator rather than a congressman. Of course, kung makahuli ka ng secretary or higher, why not? But the question is, yun ba yung mastermind? Di ba? Or yun ba yung pinapain? And how guilty is that person, no? So, corruption is corruption, Korina. I mean, hindi ko inano yun. Whether 1 peso or 1 billion. But, di ba parang sa hive of bees pag yung queen bee, hindi mo hinanap, manganganak lang yon. Walang tigil yon.
Well, aside from the fact na yan ang pinakamadaling, that's the low-hanging fruit.
Yes.
Na unahin na natin ang mga ghost projects.
Low-hanging, pero yun din ang pinaka-substantial. Why? So, just like we saw in Bulacan, di ba? From the ARD na dating DE, the DE, the assistant DE, wala na silang choice after 1 or 2 hearings kung hindi kumanta. Kasi hindi lang ma-explain yung ghost Paano mo nabayaran na tapos na. And hindi mo kayang ikaw lang yon, di ba? So, if they're saying in the rest of the country, then they're going around, meron to. Imagine if in a few days, in a month, in 2 weeks, they can come up with eto ghost. So, if you say it's 4 provinces in the country, and then that province you can isolate at makita natin, is the mastermind in that province the same as the mastermind in Bulacan? Di makikita na natin kasi in any crime, kailangan mo ng working theory. Kung hindi, a step ahead sa'yo yung mastermind dahil they just keep pointing you in the wrong direction. And in the Philippines, dahil may election cycles tayo, pagdating ng late next year, 2026, ano na to yung nandun pa rin galit ng tao, pero nandun na sa solve it by electoral solutions, meaning having a new president, rather than solve it by the science of criminology or forensic.
I think it is in the interest of this administration to come out with results right away.
Yes.
Hindi ba? So
Especially for the president. Diba?
Especially for the president,
If the
yes.
president is truly, has nothing to do with it, and yung sinabi niyang statement the other day na tamaan na yung bawat tamaan, interest niya that not only during this administration, but the more defined, di ba, at yung ebidensya lumabas earlier, better.
So before we go there, do you think that the COA might be in cahoots?
Sa lower, definitely
Sa lower.
naman. I mean, kasi paano naman, kahit sabihin mong paper, tama yung sinabi ni Senator Sherwin, di ba, na kahit papel lang yung tinignan mo, kung makikita mo na 20 days, 15 days, 30 days, tapos na. Di ba?
So what is your theory? Bakit ang bagal? Remember also, hindi ba katakataka, Senator, na may 15 sa listahan na si mismong PBBM ang naglabas. Bakit isa, dalawa, tatlo lang ang parang napupuruhan? Kumusta naman yung number 1? Kumusta naman yung number 2?
I'll start with the first. Whoever is the mastermind or yung grupo na yun are so powerful and have so much money that they started investing na guluhin to even before sila mahuli. Diba?
Yeah.
And part of guluhin to, isama lahat ng pwedeng isama, operan din at bigyan din. So, that's why everyone's scared kasi picture lang, parang guilty ka na. Diba? Yung na-interview mo lang, baka sabihin kasama
Exactly.
ka pa. Diba?
Oo,
So,
oo.
and we're getting that as a
Yes.
dose of our own medicine dito sa
So you think
sa
all of
Senate.
that is a part of an
That's part.
orchestration?
Ginagamit na lang later on, but it's part of our culture kasi, di ba, na we all love everyone and then suddenly, siya ang masungit, then, barkada mo rin yon. So may nagagamit yung culture natin.
Yes,
But the
oo.
second point, I think, is that it's just so massive. And when I say massive, one, it's systemic in the DPWH until the level. But then, kumbaga, kung tinotolerate dati na marami dyan, ayos yung kontrata, etc. Yung how did it get, di ba parang kay Napoles She wasn't the first nor the last na nangungumisyon sa kontrata. But she was probably the first to offer 30, then 40, then naging ghost na. Di ba? So, pag dinamay-damay mo na sa DPWH, di ba yung may pinakiusap na contractor, may hiniram na lisensya, may 5%, then naging ghost. So it's just so massive na pag sinabay-sabay mo, di ba? How do
Nakakalito.
you uproot all of that na nandun yung magagandang plants? Di ba? Sabi nga sa Bible, you can't just uproot a weed kung tumutubo na kasi pati yung good plants ma-uproot mo. Di
Pero
ba?
may solution. Sabi mo nga, and I agree, just start with number 1. The number 1 ghost project, the number 2 ghost project.
Yun nga ang amazement ko na ba. So even the ICI, di ba? Kung ako, I would have either passed a law, made it stronger. I would have made sure it's public. And I would have made sure 2 or 3 religious leaders are there. So it's not that wala silang politika, but business and business and government are really yan ang magka-partner So religious yan, alam naman natin sa Pilipinas may kanya-kanya ring gusto, but more or less may mga foundations yan. And we have like 3 or 4 big groups from Catholic to Iglesia to Muslim to born again and others that can be there. So there are things that could have been done. But that's why nga naisip ko, Korina, baka sakaling everyone is in a sacrificial mode, baka gusto natin, resign na lang all from the president to congressman. Doon lang ako na
Yun yung ideya Yun yung ideya na kung saan twist naman itong mga mainstream media na to. Na kung saan ano lang naman what if lang naman yun talagang pinagmukha pang mahina yung pagkakaintindi nitong si Senator Alan Peter Cayetano sa ating saligang batas. Pero napakatabaho ng utak ng mama na yan. Kaya kung talagang meron dapat pumalit dito kay Soto dyan bilang Senate President, walang iba kundi yan si Senator Alan Peter Cayetano.
natawa doon sa mga reaction. I expected reactions from the left to right, from wow, ang ganda to ang sama ng propose. But I didn't expect yung what? Resign kayo para hindi kayo makasuhan? What? Pakakawalan na lang para hindi kayo sandali lang, baliktad. Pag nag-resign ka, wala ka na sa poder. Mas madali ka ng kasuhan.
Right.
But that's for me an example of the fake news and yung pag sinabi ng isang legal luminary, sinusunod na nung iba without thinking or without saying na sandali lang, yung legal luminary na yun or yung political consultant na yun, partisan pala.
Oo.
Di ba?
Para sa akin, well, ang tama sa akin nun is, maganda. Maganda. If I could flick my finger and undo everything, yung feasibility lang, Yung feasibility lang. Do we have enough time? Do you have the budget? Who's gonna run? What will
On
happen
that
to the
point,
term?
we don't have a choice because it's in the Constitution. Doon din ako nagtaka sa ibang legal luminary na sabi na unconstitutional. Hindi, sa Constitution, when the President and Vice President resign, the Congress has to meet right away. And then they're given 7 days to pass a law. Then they have to call an election not earlier than 45 days, not later than 60 days. Pwede na nila isama sa law na yan. na hindi lang president at vice, senator na lang at congressman. Kaya ko naisip yung Korina kasi I think this will drag beyond 2028. Because nga, as of now, walang kandidato ang Marcoses. But the Pinks think that, I'll use the names, DDS, Pinklawan, etc., without any offense to the
Right.
to
Ganun
the
naman
groups.
talaga yung totoong salita ng
yeah,
tao.
I mean, if this was the US, I'll say Democrats, Republicans, but since sa atin very loose yung coalition.
Wow, ano?
So the Marcos supporters, so far,
Kawawa yung mga Marcos supporter. No? Wala naman, hindi ko natin malaman kung ano pinaglalaban nila. Wala silang kandidato, walang prinsipyo yung kanilang pinuno ngayong mga panahon na to. Sa 2028 naman, wala naman silang kandidato. Yung buti pa yung mga dilawan, meron silang kandidato. Yung mga DDS, naku, napakarami ho. Dami ho natin pwedeng kung hindi na makatakbo si VP Sara. Tapos gigipitin na itong si Senator Christopher Bongo. Marami pa ho tayo. Hindi naman ibig sabihin, tinanggal nyo si VP Sara, yung mga boto na dapat kay VP Sara, pupunta na kay Marcos, pupunta na kay Lenny. Malabo mangyari yun. Yung mga taga-suporta ni Tatay Digong, kahit pagbalik-balik ta rin yung pamundo, galit sila sa mga Marcos at sa mga Dilawan at Pinklawan. Ay, wala pa kaming nakikitang dahilan para suportahan namin ang mga kabangagan o pagiging trapo nitong mga Pinklawan ngayong mga panahon na to. Kung sakaling tanggalin niyo si Bibi Sara, kung sakaling tanggalin niyo ito si Senator Christopher Bongo, kung sakaling tanggalin niyo ito si Senator Bato de la Rosa, wala kami pakialam. Meron kaming mailalaban sa inyo na kung saan yung kahit papaano yung prinsipyo ng mga Duterte pinanghahawakan ng mga siguro pag dumating yung punto na yun, susuportahan nitong si Vice President Sara Duterte. Di ba? Hindi mo malabong mangyari yun.
walang kandidato. But they did try for to change the constitution, di ba, yung People's Initiative, okay? The Pinks think that nakabalik sila, it's our turn. If you take out Sara, kami na yan. Okay. Of course, the DDS group is, kinuha nyo na nga si Duterte, dinala nyo na doon, kakasuhan nyo pa Sara, pambato namin si Sara. So if Sara wins in 2028, what will you think will be the reaction of the Marcos and Pink group? Okay. Kung manalo naman yung Pink, tingin mo, titigil din basta-basta, etc. Ganyan. So I was just thinking, kung bawal tumakbo most of the people now, at least in one election cycle, di ba? And then you have a new batch, I'm not saying it will 100% work. Pero malay mo. And if it doesn't, then when you come back after one cycle, hindi ikaw yung problema.
Right. It's
Diba?
I think it's brave of you to have mentioned that. Well, you are identified with Duterte, right? So for
I
you
ran
to,
as an independent last time, but among the groups, I'm
Independent.
identified more with them.
because of the minority bloc. And so thereby, it was brave of you to say that because that discounts, that really derails also the movement for
Totoo
Sara.
naman na malabong mangyari yan. But it will take everyone eh. So sabi nga ng Malacanang to their spokesperson, si Ate Claire, no? Sabi niya, mauna ka. Sasagutin ko siya ngayon. Mauna ako, basta't lahat kami.
Yeah.
Iba yung ikaw lang, iba yung mauna ka. Di ba? So if Korina says na, lahat tayong journalist, bawal tayo mag-endorse ng kahit anong produkto. If they say, mauna ka, Korina, or if they say everyone does it, sige. Di ba? But not all networks pay their journalists the same.
Right.
So iba yung, but eto,
Yes.
halos pareho kami ng sitwasyon. Siyempre, kawawa lang yung neophytes ng Congress at ng Senate ngayon kasi parang wala pa kaming alam dyan, bawal na kami. No? But my point is, in this present universe natin ngayon, we have a problem. We do need national transformation, pero parang walang root going there.
Right.
I mean, if you're here long enough, para bang paulit-ulit paggrabe lang ng paggrabe, di ba? I mean, whether you talk about scandals nung first President Marcos, okay, President Cory, President FBR, I mean, the presidents handle it differently, but every administration had their own scandals. Eh. So parang vicious cycle ng palaki lang. So that was I was thinking na, if we just continue this to 2028, baka mag-people power, baka mag-kudeta, baka may election, pero right after, ganun na naman. So parang, so I was thinking kung multiverse to, what if in another multiverse, who's ang nagbigay? The president says, I have 3 more years, but for the country, sige. Vice President Duterte says, sure win ako susunod, pero sige, pagbigyan ko.
And in another multiverse, we just turn back time and start from the beginning, knowing what we know now.
Yeah.
Di ba?
Well, with all the technology now, even ako, gumigising pa rin ako na paano nangyari lahat to. Paano nangyaring...
Kaya nga multiverse eh.
Yeah.
Pupunta tayo dun sa part na babantayan na natin ngayon lahat ng mga flood control projects.
But ang problema, Korina, hindi lang flood control ang problema eh.
Marami
because
pa.
of BIR. I mean, you have
Right.
friends, I have friends,
Yes.
diba? Okay.
Customs.
I wasn't gonna say customs, but then, nung kinonfiscate yung mga sasakyan ni Diskaya, ang sabi ng mga Diskaya, we got it from dealers. Ang sabi naman ng custom, hindi bayad ang tax. I haven't heard na iniimbestigahan yung dealers. So obviously, hindi lang smugglers, meron ng sistema doon, di ba? And then, banks. Though I'm still going back and forth kung ano stand ko doon. Pero sa isang banda, pera mo yun. So dapat ma-withdraw mo yun. Sa isang banda naman, oo nga naman, pag nag-withdraw ka ng 400 million a day, hindi ba
Di ba 500,000 lang maamla ka na?
No, mafla-flag.
Yes, mafla-flag.
But if it's a usual transaction, meaning may business ka, so if I have a restaurant na it makes $1 million a day or 600,000, mafla-flag lang pero okay lang yon. So like in this case kasi kontratista sila eh.
Oo.
So that's so it's flag
malaki.
but it's not stop because it's not a suspicious in the sense that it's explainable, 'di ba? Pero sabi nga nung iba ngayon, but if 30% lang ng kontrata is supplies, and usually supplies check but ganyan, di ba? But tingin ko baliktad naman. Nag-overboard naman sa 500,000 lang a day. Kawawa na ngayon ang maraming mga negosyante na they need more cash a day. So what will they do? Baka hindi nila i-deposit ngayon.
The change of leadership and Blue Ribbon Committee. Okay. Why do you think Ping Lacson resigned?
I think many factors, di ba? Yung like us, we've been around so may pananaw at way siya of how to run it. Pero he got back to the Senate. And it wasn't that long ago kasi he was in the Senate during Duterte's time, but 3 years siyang wala. Umiba talaga Umiba din. Not only because of the senators, because of social media. So ngayon, dati, siguro 60-70% ng gawin mo, ikaw chairman. May iba pa ng chairman, parang 90%. Parang ako chairman Pero ngayon hindi.
You don't believe that there's pressure for him to...
That's one factor,
Yes.
di ba? Na it's more difficult. Okay. Pangalawa, tama yung sinabi ni Senate President Soto. Sala sa lamig, sala sa mainit. Meron gustong stop. Pag sinap, gusto ituloy. Pag tuloy, meron gustong, Third, from the senators. Kasi nga, yung direction, so like kami sa minority, may angal kami sa... Definition lang bakit pag minority senator ang naglagay ng pondo sa budget, bakit insertion? Pero pag sa majority, amendment. Di ba? Yung may mga ganun na bakit pag may nabanggit, and hindi namin pinagtatakpan full investigation tayo. Pero pag may binanggit sa credible yung witness. Pag sa majority, ganon. And to be fair, that's not all on Senator Lacson, di ba? And then outside, there are things outside we don't know.
Right.
How does Malacanang feel? How does this group feel? How
I
does
think
that
yung we
group
don't
feel?
know ang dahilan.
Marami
Kasi
din.
hindi naman maramdamin si Senator Lacson kung yun lang
Well, all these rumors of the coup, pero sa kanila nanggagaling yun, hindi sa amin Kasi if yung 5 na nagsabing mag-independent na lang kami, if they wanted to go with us, then majority na kami.
Right.
But by announcing na, I mean, you've covered the Senate long enough, di ba? Pag yung 5 sinabi mag-independent, ang ibig lang sabihin nun sa majority, ligawan nyo kami. Kasi if they wanted to join us sa minority, hindi na mag-a-announce yan.
Panliligaw ba ang hinahanap nitong 5 ito? And by this 5, we're talking about JV, the 2 Villars, tama? And the 2, sino ba yung